Now that is mainstream news. Here's the London Guardian. Now we know the truth. The financial meltdown wasn't a mistake. It was a con. And we have record bonuses now to be paid to Goldman Sachs. Just in England, £3.5 billion. And, of course, you notice the intergroup, J.P. Morgan Chase and other groups that own the private Federal Reserve holding company, they're all making record profits while hoarding all the bailout money. And why has the SEC indicted Goldman Sachs, some of their members, civilly? Well, they'll probably give them a $5 million fine and slap them on the wrist and give somebody probation for the trillions that have been stolen. But joining us is Max Keiser to discuss this. We'll also get into the FBI saying their number one threat is us, the American people. Bill Clinton says, you know, if the Tea Parties don't shut up, people don't criticizing Wall Street, that a terror attack is going to happen, and it's our fault. I mean, they're out in the open, folks, getting ready to stage terror attacks here. And we'll take your calls on that subject. Max Keiser, good to have you here with us.
Yeah, Alex Jones, it's always a pleasure.
Well, I tell you, things are getting crazy. Let's get into Goldman Sachs and financial terrorism.
Right. Well, as you point out, I've been talking about this for a number of years. Basically, they have been involved, as have other Wall Street banks, in setting up banks to fail because they can profit on the failure. So just like we've talked about before about Building 7, during the 9/11 incident, there were many options traders that made a lot of money because the Building 7 collapsed. Now, here's Goldman Sachs, same thing. They create a fund, they create bonds that they build to collapse, that they rig with financial dynamite so that it collapses, and they make money on the collapse. It's financial terrorism. It's a controlled demolition. That's how they make a lot of their money. That's how they make most of their money.
Well, there's no doubt that the stimulus has run out, and now they're saying, okay, maybe it is a depression. We need more money. Obama's new regulation package allows the top banks and brokerage firms to, through their regulators that they control, to basically feed other smaller regional healthy banks into their maw, and a tax on smaller institutions that's paid through bailout money to them. I mean, this is, we've got Gordon Brown calling for a world government of and for and by the banks. I mean, it's just getting crazy.
Well, you know, it's interesting because Lloyd Blankfein, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, of course, famously said that he was doing God's work when he and his cohorts are creating all of these problems for everybody and creating blackmail situations and extortion to get their buddy Hank Paulson to extort $700 billion, if you recall, back there at the end of 2008 in front of Congress. But apparently he's angered the gods because now in Iceland the volcano is blowing up. And it's what's remarkable, Alex, is that this is similar, and almost exactly what happened during the French Revolution. Actually, the French Revolution started when a volcano in Iceland blew up. It caused global problems with agriculture, and this was the what set in motion.
You know what? I mean, it's like a comet being a portend of doom. It's like God was showing people the earth freezing solid, basically, right as they tried to pass their global warming takeover. Now, you're right. I'd forgotten that historically. Mega volcano shrouding Europe in dust. Stay there. Well, the first 2 hours were dedicated to the fact that it's 100%. The military-industrial complex that controls both parties is going to stage a terror attack to blame it on people that want to end the Fed, people that want to audit the Fed, that want to arrest the people that run Goldman Sachs, that controlled all the regulatory positions, and aren't just ripping our country off. They're ripping off countries from Chile to New Zealand to Greece to Iceland. And they've been building this propaganda up. They claim the Tea Parties are right-wing. It becomes a self-fulfilling Republican prophecy. Then they began demonizing those when polls show 40% of the Tea Parties are Democrats and independents. It's divide and conquer. Oh, you want a populist movement against what we're doing? We'll tell black people not to go because you hate them, invoking that, instead of talking about the real issues. Now the Democrats have been caught sending people in Nazi outfits with Nazi signs. This is even in the AP. To events all over the country, and it blew up in their face. And now Clinton's on television saying there will be a terror attack if the Tea Parties don't shut up, they're going to cause it. Now, I've seen this before. I'm telling you again, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. We're in grave danger. This is a psyop. Now, looking at the real enemy, the criminals, the top groups on Wall Street, not your local bank, not your local broker, but the people that run it. Max Keiser, for years, top broker, stock market inventor, TV shows on BBC, Al Jazeera, Press TV, RT, you name it, is a top expert on this. And he's been talking about how they destroyed the economy by design to consolidate it. McClatchy sued last year. Newspapers got the documents, Greg Gordon, proving that it was premeditated just in one area, that they got the documents on, that they were betting against the housing market while telling people it was good and paying for insurance to have it AAA rated. Then the looting of AIG. That was the big payout kitty they used to pay the criminals. Now they want more. They're calling it banking reform, but it gives the same group power over other financial institutions that they want to wreck their competition. Max Keiser, you've got the floor. Tell us about financial terrorism and how it works and what we're facing.
Well, I have been doing many reports about this and films for a number of years. I mean, you mentioned that these attacks are coming. But they're here now, and they're happening now, and they've been happening for the past 2 years. These are financial attacks. When the crisis hit in 2008, people were saying, wow, this is a once in a 100-year phenomenon. Nobody saw it coming. Now we know that Lehman Brothers had a bank right down the street where they had this huge slush fund that they parked $50 billion worth of cash and debt, so that at the end of the quarter, when they needed to report to the SEC what their cash holding was, they could play accounting games with their little fake bank down the street. We know that Goldman Sachs now, according to the SEC, allegedly involved in fraud in terms of selling tainted bonds to investors all over the world, including in Europe, where now you see problems with the Greek economy blowing up and other countries' economies are blowing up. And, of course, Iceland went through this already 2 years ago as I made that film about it in 2007, 2008. The Icelandic krona collapsed, the Icelandic economy collapsed, and now, in an ironic fit of poetic justice, the volcanoes are erupting in Iceland, and they're sending out this toxic cloud of ash to the UK, who wanted to extract even another $5 billion from Iceland to appease the financial terrorists. But the gods, the volcanoes in Iceland, are taking on the fake handiwork of the fake servant of God, Lloyd Blankfein, and they are doing the true work of God by putting these bankers on notice that there are forces out there that are bigger than even their corruption. And it goes back to, right before the French Revolution. There was a huge volcano in Iceland. It blanketed the globe in dust and ash. The agriculture failed, which led to the government of France failing on its financial obligations, which gave rise to the French Revolution. It started with a volcano in Iceland. There's a direct parallel.
History only repeats itself in these cycles. There's a lot of things going on that aren't in our books. There's a lot of things going on.
Alex, obviously, the volcano is demanding that we sacrifice some bankers to the volcano. I say, let's get Blankfein, let's get Jamie Dimon, let's get Dick Fuld, and throw them into the volcano. That's the only way we can stop the nightmare. Sacrifice bankers to the volcano.
Well, let's get serious here for a moment, but that is an intriguing idea there, Herr Doctor. But expanding on that...
we're back to pre-Industrial Revolution days of feudalism, because all they want to do is they want to pursue an economy of lords and serfs. They want us to be free-range slaves tied into our the reason you don't see bread lines in America is because they're all on these swipe cards. They're getting food stamps. Vis-a-vis and swipe cards. They're getting food stamps.
Now, what is it, 30-something million now on food stamps?
In America, just like in the Depression.
But let's go back to volcanoes. Later in the next hour, after you leave us, I will get into the AP. Top volcanologists are warning that the super caldera, that's 4 states in size, centered in and around Yellowstone, could blow. I mean, this is becoming biblical with all these earthquakes hitting major cities and volcanoes blowing up and tsunamis. And now they're saying that the super volcano, thousands of times bigger than what Iceland has, could blow up. I mean, hell, it could be the end of the world, Keiser.
Well, I mean, everyone understands the crisis happening now. Finally, the SEC, they finally have charged Goldman with fraud, and now this is going to unleash a wave of lawsuits for all the activity that's been going on for the past 5 to 10 years, ever since the passage of the Commodity Futures Modernization Act back in the year 2000, which swept in a wave of all this fraud. But I can tell you right now what the fraud is going to be 2 years from today. You're going to be doing a show talking about how Hollywood blew up because of derivatives. And this is just happening right now. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission has just approved derivative trading for box office futures contracts.
And that's the next bubble. I want to get into that later, and I want to get into testimony 2 weeks ago in Congress, 100-to-1 leverage, world's largest fraud exposed. J.P. Morgan Chase caught manipulating gold and silver, and they've now got whistleblowers testifying before Congress. But